Have your roles and responsibilities in your life kind of taken over your identity and you kind of feel like, wait, who am I? Or you've kind of just lost or forgotten who you are? That's today's topic on the LOL with Danielle podcast. Your weekly mental vacation from the daily grind for busy women who just need a moment to pause, breathe, and woosah. I'm your host, Danielle Washington, and I've been there. I have gotten to the point where I identified as my roles and responsibilities. One of the things I had a friend told me a long time ago who he said, I am is a complete sentence. I am. And as a woman who is a multi everything, I do all these different things because, hey, I'm a woman who juggles everything. Like so many of you who are listening to this podcast, I am a podcaster. I am a yoga therapist. I am a Kundalini yoga teacher. I'm a Reiki master. I'm an energy healer. I'm a daughter. I'm an aunt. I'm a friend. I'm a Californian. I'm a Bay Arean. I am Black. I am an Alpha Kappa Alpha. I am all these different things. But those are just my roles and responsibilities. Those are my roles and responsibilities. Those aren't me. Those aren't Danielle. And I kind of sometimes question, like, when did it become an identity? When did I become a role? When did I lose my identity? Like I lost my license and instead it shifted from saying my name to it's saying my role. Do you know when you started drifting away from yourself? Like, can you actually pinpoint when that started happening in your life? When you just start losing touch with your true self while in the midst of juggling the various roles from maybe it's parenting, partner, professional, whatever it is? Can you pinpoint when you kind of lost touch? Like, when was the last time you did something purely for your own enjoyment? It wasn't part of your job, wasn't some responsibility or role that you play in your life. You did it just for you. Like, can you remember like what it was like to dream and not it be about trying to achieve something? It wasn't a part of your job. And I say this especially for my entrepreneurs out there who our dreams are often connected to our newfound joy of trying to make a living out of our life. We find ourselves turning our hobbies into a business, which is great because we're doing something we love. But when you're doing something you love to financially be secure in a certain way, it kind of takes a little bit of that joy because it now becomes a part of who you are. It becomes your identity. Like, I don't exactly remember when it happened, but there was a point in my life where it was like I came to a dead end road and I was like, yo, who in the heck are you beyond what you do for others? Like, seriously, who am I? I gave one of my yoga therapy clients an exercise to do, and I asked her to write in her journal as if she was writing as if she had died, and not thinking about like how she died or when she died. Like, that's not the purpose of this, but to write as if she has disappeared. And what happens? What happens? Like, what would life be like if I or you were not here to do for others? And that was something I had to do for myself. It was like, who am I beyond what I do for others? And when I asked myself that question, I was like, ugh. The answer was, I don't know. I did not know who I was outside what I do for others. Because that's who I was. I was someone who gave. I was a giver. I was a fixer at first, but now I was a giver. Now I am a therapist. Now I am a coach. Now I am this, I am that. But it always had to do with how I can do for others. I didn't know who I was outside of doing and giving. Like, okay, well, if I can't add anything that I do or give, that means I'm not a caregiver. I mean, I am a caregiver, but it's not who I am. So can't talk about that. What is it that I like? And I just didn't know. I had lost my joy. I had lost the connection of what brought me happiness. I had lost me, caught up in just doing what I do and being on my grind. But I don't think that's like the underlying kind of real story behind this. I think the underlying kind of issue behind the cause of this situation is guilt. It's guilt that comes from prioritizing ourselves. The guilt that comes from prioritizing ourselves over our responsibilities and our roles. Like, how dare I put myself first when I have these other people who are counting on me? Like, it felt selfish. And I worried about neglecting others because I was taking time for myself. Like, even to this day, I'm better. I'm doing such a better job because I'm setting boundaries and expectations. But like, when I first started really kind of being a part of taking care of my parents a little bit more and caregiving for others, even clients, I would see someone text or call and think I needed to immediately respond no matter what I was doing, because I felt like I was neglecting someone. Even though I might have been having the most beautiful moment by myself and enjoying myself, it was like, oh no, you can't, like, what will people say about you? What will people think if you're not always there? And that guilt, I think, is what stops us from putting ourselves first, from identifying and really focusing on what and who we are beyond what we do for others. And this is especially true for people who are parenting caregivers or people who just juggle a lot of things. Like, that guilt can become a major block. It stops you from even considering the ideal of considering, like, what? Me? Prioritize myself? Nah, that's stupid. That's crazy. How can I do that? Because it leads to this internal conflict of, like, one side of you is like, I know I'm worthy. I know I deserve self-care. I know self-care is important, but at the same time, I have all these people and these roles and responsibilities that are counting on me. What would people say if I didn't show up or I didn't do as much as they expect me to do? And that guilt will kill you. Not even that it will kill you. What we don't realize is there's a cost to all this. There's a cost to when you only identify as your roles and responsibilities. There's a cost that I don't think anyone's talking about. I mean, it shows up in so many ways. Like, if you're ever feeling like the lack of enthusiasm, difficulty setting personal goals, even difficulties setting boundaries, or that feeling of restlessness, like something's missing, because what's missing is you. That's a sign. That's a sign that you lost touch with yourself. When you lost that spontaneity, you lost that openness to the possibilities because you're so busy, like, I gotta just be in these roles or responsibilities. I don't have time to keep myself open. That's a sign that you lost touch with yourself. Or even more so, when you have trouble describing who you are outside of what you do for others and what roles you fill, that is a classic card-carrying sign that, honey, you have lost touch with yourself. But yeah, those are the signs, but what is it really costing you? What is it really costing you when you've lost touch with yourself? Well, one, it's costing you this emotional drain that I don't think any of you want to be feeling. That emotional drain that comes with not being connected to yourself. Because when you're not connected to yourself, it's really depleting. Like, you're literally living for the roles. with no recharging, no joy fully kind of changing and adding to your life, which can be depleting and it can lead to burnout, which if you're not already there, you're on the road to it. Another cost that we don't ever talk about when you are kind of living for these roles is this identity crisis. Because over time, this inability to see yourself beyond the role can lead to making transitions in your life that feels like when the children leave home and the career shifts, you're like, okay, who am I outside of this? Like, what am I? My kids are now gone to college or they're now in school and I'm not at home with me. I don't know who I am. And that can lead to a lot of emotional instability. It can impact your relationships. On the outside, you may be smiling, everything looks good, but on the inside, there's that resentment of not being able to live. Like, why am I always on the back burner? And that shows up whether you realize it or not, because the real you doesn't get to express herself. And then there's that loss of opportunity of growth. When you're self-identifying as your role or responsibility, there's no room for personal growth. There's no room for new interests. There's no room for the possibilities, for the universe to gift you with amazing things you can't even think of because I'm just this. I'm in a role. I'm in this thing, and I have to stay here because this is who I am, causing life to feel stagnant and repetitive. And is that really the life that you desire? But, at the same time, I don't want to sit here and say, oh my God, just magically start putting yourself first. I'd love to say that was the easy, just all you do is decide you're going to put yourself first and life's going to be amazing. No, there's a step in between. There's a step in between because I feel like when you've been so used to identifying as a role or responsibility, you can't just go from that. Maybe some people do, but I think most of us don't. You just go from that to a complete shift that I'm me. I think first you got to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. It's important to address the fact that this doesn't feel comfortable and acknowledge the discomfort that comes with stepping outside of the roles and responsibilities. There's a lot of self-reflection that happens, and this can feel uncomfortable when you're starting to question who you are and kind of how you've been rolling will feel challenging, especially if you spent many years identifying as a role or responsibility. So give yourself some grace as you do the self-reflection. You don't have to jump from identifying as the roles to I know exactly who I am and I'm standing 10 toes down. No. Because you got to learn how to also sit with this guilt and fear. Because it's not going away. It's not going to just kind of dissolve. You have to sit with it, connect with it, get to the awareness of it, acknowledge these feelings without the guilt. When you can maybe feel the guilt without the judgment behind it, there's where some of the changes start happening. Guilt and this fear behind who am I beyond the role and you starting to work towards that is a normal part of prioritizing yourself. It gets easier, but it's a normal part of that. And so when you're able to learn how to sit with the guilt and fears that are running from it and trying to say I shouldn't have it and shoulding on yourself, as I air quote, and you can't see me, but I'm air quoting should. When you're shoulding on yourself, I shouldn't feel guilt. I shouldn't feel fear. I should be okay to be who I am. There's steps in between that. There's steps between that role, identifying as a role, and being yourself. And that's learning how to sit with the guilt. It's also acknowledging the small steps towards your self-priority. Like, it's just the small little actions that you take that can make a difference. It's the small, tiny actions that can ease the discomfort. Like spending a couple days just intentionally saying no. Even when you want to say yes, just say no to see how it feels. Just say no. Say no in the mirror to yourself. Just little things like that. Once a week to non-essential tasks, just start saying no a little bit more. When you're able to take a moment, step back, and recognize, who am I beyond being there for others? Not even to recognize, when you're able to start asking the questions, start the process with the question. The question is, who am I beyond being there for others? And sometimes it's just sitting with that for months, weeks, whatever it is, whatever it takes. There's no timetable to this process. But the process starts with the awareness. And the awareness starts with asking yourself, who am I beyond being there for others? Start there and see where it leads you. That's what I got for you today. Have a good week, and I'll see you next week. Ciao. Thanks for joining us this week on the Hello Well with Danielle show. Make sure to visit our website, hellowellwithdanielle.com, where you can subscribe to our show on iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon Music and never miss an episode. Also, you can follow us on social media at Hello Well with Danielle on Facebook and Instagram, and Hello Well Danny on Twitter. And if you like hella love the show and got some good nuggets out of it, know that I'm not too proud to ask for you to please leave a rating or review on iTunes so that we can continue to expand our reach and help other women of color. Again, thanks so much for listening, and I hope to see you next week. Ciao.